Animals have evolved extraordinary adaptations to fit their environment, but they're not perfect. Designers can go back to the drawing board. Evolution is condemned to modify what's already there. So nature is full of compromises and imperfections. Creationists also ask how something so apparently perfect as the eye just sprang into existence. Well, it didn't. The basic chemistry that makes up a light-sensitive cell is shared right across the animal kingdom, and natural selection has seized on this time and time again.
Science has uncovered species at every stage in the evolution of the eye.
It is a cumulative process,
and each step of the way is more useful than the one before.
The eye has evolved independently at least 40 different times around the animal kingdom, and it has evolved gradually, improvement on improvement. And yet...
no sensible person would have ever left the body the way it is.
Like what? What's a good example of that?
The most dramatic is the human eye. You know, it's held up as this example of perfection in the body. It's not perfect at all. It's a perfect example of why the body is not designed. Cover one, if you would, please. And we take the pin and we move it right in the, and you have to keep looking right at the bridge of my nose, so keep your eye fixed. And now we're going to move it just out a little bit, about 15 degrees, and right about there.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
You can't see it?
No.
Now can you see it?
Yes.
Now can you see it?
Yes.
Now can you see it?
No.
There's a blind spot.
Yeah.
That's really lousy. Our bodies are so fabulous in some respects. Our heart keeps beating and never takes a 5-minute vacation for decade after decade after decade. That's astounding. But we have an appendix, we have wisdom teeth, birth is difficult, many people get nearsightedness, and the combination of some things being so perfect and other things being such botched jobs is what should make us all sit up and take notice that this is something that's been shaped by natural selection. It has a lot of vulnerabilities built in that can be explained only by how natural selection works.
So our botched, compromised bodies are themselves evidence of evolution. They're shot through with history. Evolution is a fact. It's documented by science to the same degree Napoleon is by history. Some things are just true. They're not a matter of choice or opinion. But you'd never guess that in the place where this matters more than anywhere, in our schools, where the teaching of evolution has become a hugely sensitive issue for science teachers. This is multicultural Britain, and one of its fault lines runs straight through our children's classrooms. How do we reconcile scientific truth with the deeply held convictions that bind religious communities? Charles Darwin was the first person to grasp the extraordinary idea that life on Earth had evolved without the intervention of any god. And I've always been intrigued by how he himself wrestled with what that meant for religion. Darwin was deeply worried about how religion spread, not through reason and evidence, but by being seeded in children's minds at a young age at school. He wrote that it would become as difficult for them to throw off their belief in God as for a monkey to throw off its instinctive fear and hatred of a snake. Darwin became concerned by what he saw as the stupid classical education at Rugby School, dulling his eldest son William's once lively mind. So he was prepared to brave the snobbery of Victorian society to send his 4 other sons to the less prestigious Clapham Grammar School, because it had strong science education. 150 years later, Darwin would find reason to be equally anxious about what his children were being taught at school. The compromised values of multicultural Britain mean that teachers hesitate to offend the religious beliefs of their pupils, even when these directly contradict scientific fact. Earlier in the series, I took a science class from Park High School in North London, fossil hunting. I was amazed by their lack of knowledge and understanding of evolution. So, what do their science teachers have to say about this? I worry they're tiptoeing too respectfully around traditional beliefs.
Some kids just won't accept it. That they're brought up in families where they just don't believe it, and that's an end to it. There's no lack of understanding of it necessarily. It's just we can't get into the business of knocking down kids' religions and the religions of families.
Why not, actually?
Why not?
Because we teach science, and I would not feel comfortable talking about anything but science. So if I present the scientific case and I make sure they understand the scientific case, I think I've done my job.
Yeah.
But their acceptance of it is a separate issue.
For some students, truth isn't something they see coming through science, even though our emphasis is on ideas and evidence to support these ideas. A lot of students have a religious narrative that's very important to them. It's an important part of their life through their...
Would it be too unfair to suggest that these well-meaning teachers are running scared? Who could blame them? Obviously, what we believe is affected by our upbringing. But that doesn't mean we can't change our minds. We all have the right to see the evidence and re-evaluate our beliefs. These science teachers shouldn't be afraid to spell out the scientific truth derived from evidence.
I don't see that we can expect to convince them just by showing them the evidence.
Really? Why not?
Well, because they've got other evidence which they've been brought up with throughout their lives.
But that's not evidence.
No, to them it's evidence, though, isn't it?
And to their parents.
We're talking about something very fundamental here. We're talking about young people. We're talking about identity. It's not our place to fly the banner of science and say there's no room for anything else. All we can do is present science. This is a way of thinking. This is science has given us so much. This is one way of interpreting life. We believe this is
interpreting.
We believe this is the way because we are scientists, but it's not my place to tell you that you're wrong.
We believe it because we're scientists. Do you really mean that, or do you mean we believe it because the evidence is there in the rock?
That's what I'm saying. That's because I'm a scientist, and that's the way I view the world.
No, it's not because you're a scientist, is it? I mean, it's there. The evidence is there. Their evidence is not there. It's just made up.
You don't believe that the Earth is round only if you're an astronaut. You don't believe Napoleon existed only if you're a historian. You believe these things because they're facts proved by evidence. Evolution is also a demonstrated fact. The truth really is out there. It's not a matter of opinion. Relativism, the quaint notion that there are many truths, all equally deserving of respect, even if they contradict each other, is rife today. It sounds like a respectful gesture towards multiculturalism. Actually, it's a pretentious cop-out. There really is something special about scientific evidence. Science works, planes fly, magic carpets and broomsticks don't. Gravity is not a version of the truth, it is the truth. Anybody who doubts it is invited to jump out of a 10th floor window. Evolution, too, is reality. You don't decide whether to believe it or not believe it on the basis of whim or culture. The evidence supports it. Evolution is the plain truth. Where has all this wobbling come from? Well, it started right back in the 19th century, in Darwin's time. Rather than just denying the evidence, the Church of England developed the most sophisticated strategy to face the challenge of evolution. It saw evolution as one truth within a bigger one, and embraced Darwin in what one might call a comfortable relativist fudge. Science would explain the workings of nature, and God could take the credit for getting science started in the first place. It's a subtle argument put forward by the most powerful Christians in the world. Let's take it on in its modern guise.
Darwinism as a theory of how evolution works